Colt Mercer pressed his fingers against his abdomen, counting the seconds until the cramping eased. 37 seconds this time. He pulled out his phone and typed the number into his notes app, adding it to the growing list of symptoms he'd been tracking for 3 weeks. Tuesday, 8:47 a.m. abdominal cramps. Duration 37 seconds. Severity 6 out of 10. The gym around him buzzed with morning activity. Veterans from 3 different wars worked through their routines. Metal plates clanging against barbells, the steady rhythm of heavy bags taking punishment. This place was his sanctuary, built with his own hands after he'd left the Army. Every piece of equipment chosen with purpose. Every corner designed to help broken soldiers find their strength again. But today, even the familiar sounds felt distant. Colt walked to his office, a small room overlooking the main floor. His vision blurred as he sat down, the edges of everything going soft for a moment before snapping back into focus. He blinked hard, then noted at 0.8:52 a.m. blurred vision, approximately 4 seconds. "You look terrible." Colt looked up to find Jake Morrison standing in his doorway. The 50-year-old Vietnam vet had been coming to the gym since day one, reliable as sunrise. "Just tired," Colt said. "When's the last time you took a day off?" Colt scrolled through his phone notes. The symptoms had started exactly 22 days ago. Before that, he'd felt fine. Strong. The way he'd felt his entire adult life. "Maybe you're right." Jake stepped closer, studying Colt's face. "You sure you're okay? You've got that 1,000-yard stare going." "I'm fine." The words came out sharper than intended. Jake raised his hands. "All right, brother. Just looking out for you." After Jake left, Colt opened his tracking spreadsheet. He'd been logging everything for 3 weeks now: sleep patterns, food intake, water consumption, supplement timing, bowel movements, exercise intensity. His combat medic training had taught him that the body was a system, and systems followed patterns. When something went wrong, there was always a cause, but the data made no sense. He'd eliminated variables one by one. Stopped taking his usual protein powder. Switched from tap water to bottled. Changed his sleep schedule. Cut out alcohol completely. The symptoms persisted. The cramping came again, stronger this time. Colt gripped the edge of his desk, breathing through it like he'd learned to breathe through pain in Afghanistan. 43 seconds, his phone buzzed. A text from Rhea. "How are you feeling today? You left early this morning." Colt stared at the message. He told her about the symptoms 2 weeks ago. Her response had been immediate and dismissive. "It's stress," she'd said, not looking up from her laptop. "You push yourself too hard at that gym. I've been doing this for 5 years. Never had problems before. Maybe you're getting older." Bodies change, Colt. But Colt knew his body. Knew it the way a mechanic knows an engine, the way a pilot knows his aircraft. This wasn't aging. This was something else. He typed back. "Same as yesterday." Her response came quickly. "Maybe you should take something." "I picked up some antacids at the store." Colt deleted the message thread and returned to his notes. The fatigue was getting worse. Not the tired after workout feeling he knew well, but a bone-deep exhaustion that sleep couldn't touch. Yesterday, he needed 3 cups of coffee just to feel human. "Boss." Tony Vega stood at the door, gym bag slung over his shoulder. The kid was 25, built like a linebacker, with arms covered in tattoos that told the story of 2 tours in Iraq. "What's up, Tony? Just wanted to say thanks again for covering my membership last month. My VA check got delayed and don't worry about it. I'll pay you back as soon as." I said don't worry about it. Colt's voice carried the edge of command that had kept soldiers alive in combat zones. Tony straightened instinctively. "Yes, sir. I appreciate what you do here. What you've built. This place saved my life." The words hit Colt harder than they should have. He looked out at the gym floor, at the men and women working through their demons 1 rep at a time. This was his life's work, his purpose after the military. What would happen to them if something happened to him? The thought came from nowhere, cold and unwelcome. Colt pushed it away, but it lingered at the edges of his mind like smoke. "Keep working hard, Tony. That's all the thanks I need." After Tony left, Colt pulled up his medical insurance information. He'd been avoiding doctors since leaving the Army, partly from stubbornness, partly from a knowledge that military medicine had taught him to treat symptoms he could identify. But these symptoms didn't fit any pattern he recognized. The cramping returned, worse than before. This time it lasted 57 seconds, and when it ended, Colt found himself gripping the desk so hard his knuckles had gone white. Something was wrong. Really wrong. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Rhea. Don't forget we're having dinner with my friend Lars tonight. 7 p.m. Colt stared at the name. Lars Creighton. Rhea had mentioned him a few times recently. Someone from her temp job at the university lab. A pharmaceutical researcher. Smart guy, according to Rhea. Interesting conversations. Colt had never met him, but something about the way Rhea talked about Lars bothered him. Not what she said, but how she said it. The slight change in her voice. The way her eyes lit up when his name came up. He'd been married to Rhea for 4 years. Long enough to know when she was hiding something. I might be late. Feeling rough today. Oh no, you should definitely stay home and rest. I'll cancel with Lars. The response came too fast. Too eager. No, don't cancel. I'll be there. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, okay. Feel better. Colt set his phone aside and pulled up his symptom log again. 22 days of declining health. No clear cause. No obvious trigger. But as he scrolled through the entries, something caught his attention. The symptoms had started 3 days after Rhea began her temp job at the lab. 3 days after she'd first mentioned Lars Creighton. Correlation wasn't causation. His medic training had drilled that into him. But it was still correlation. The fatigue hit him like a wave, sudden and overwhelming. Colt closed his eyes, fighting to stay upright in his chair. When he opened them, the room seemed darker somehow, as if someone had dimmed the lights. He needed help. Professional help. But first, he needed to see his brother. Colt's legs gave out during the third set of deadlifts. One moment, he was pulling 400 pounds off the floor, feeling the familiar burn in his muscles. The next, he was staring up at the fluorescent lights, Jake Morrison's worried face swimming in and out of focus above him. Call 911. Jake shouted to someone Colt couldn't see. No. The word came out weak, but Colt forced more strength into it. No ambulance. Call my brother. Colt, you need. Call Deacon. He's at Dayton General. The ride to the hospital blurred together. Jake driving his pickup truck, Colt slumped in the passenger seat, trying to stay conscious. The cramping in his abdomen had become a constant burning now, like someone was slowly turning up the heat on a stove inside him. Deacon was waiting when they arrived at the emergency department. Colt's older brother looked exactly like what he was, a trauma doctor who'd seen too much death to be surprised by anything. But the worry in his eyes was real as he helped Colt into a wheelchair. What happened? Deacon asked Jake. He's been looking sick for weeks. Today he just collapsed. I'm fine, Colt said. Just tired. Deacon ignored him, already pushing the wheelchair toward an examination room. When did this start? 3 weeks ago. Maybe a month. Have you been tracking symptoms? Of course I have. That earned him a slight smile from his brother. They both had the same methodical approach to problems, the same need to understand the mechanics of everything around them. It was what had made Deacon a good doctor and Colt a good medic. The examination room was cold and sterile. Deacon helped Colt onto the table, then immediately switched into doctor mode, checking pupils, taking blood pressure, listening to heart and lungs with practiced efficiency. Talk to me, Deacon said as he worked. What exactly have you been experiencing? Colt pulled out his phone and opened his notes. Abdominal cramping, comes and goes. Blurred vision, usually lasts a few seconds. Fatigue that doesn't respond to rest. Nausea, especially in the mornings. How long do the cramps last? Started around 30 seconds. Today, it was almost a minute. Deacon's hands stilled on the stethoscope. Show me your tracking data. Colt handed over his phone. Deacon scrolled through weeks of meticulously recorded symptoms, times, durations, severity ratings. His expression grew darker with each entry. This is good data, Deacon said finally. Thorough, but I don't like what it's telling me. Which is progressive poisoning. The words hung in the air between them. Colt had considered the possibility, but hearing it from his brother, a doctor with 15 years of emergency medicine experience, made it real. What kind of poison? I don't know yet. But these symptoms, this progression. Deacon shook his head. I'm ordering a full tox screen. Blood, urine, hair sample. Everything. That's not standard for a collapse. You're not a standard patient. You're my brother, and someone is trying to kill you. 2 hours later, they had their answer. Deacon walked back into the exam room, carrying a tablet, his face grim. He'd sent Jake home and closed the door, ensuring they had privacy. Chlorphenapir, he said without preamble. Colt recognized the name. Insecticide. Agricultural use, mostly. Also used in pharmaceutical research. Small doses as a metabolic disruptor. Deacon pulled up the lab results on his tablet. Your blood levels are low, but consistent. This didn't happen yesterday, Colt. Someone has been dosing you for weeks. The room seemed to shrink around them. Colt felt his training kick in, the same clinical detachment that had helped him treat wounded soldiers under fire. Remove emotion. Focus on facts. Deal with the crisis. Fatal dosage? Not yet. But consistent exposure at these levels? 6 months, maybe less. Treatment. Stop the exposure. Chelation therapy to help your body eliminate what's already in your system. You'll recover fully if we catch it in time. Which we have. Yes. Deacon sat down in the chair across from the examination table. The question is who's doing this to you? Colt already knew. Had known, somewhere deep in his gut, since he'd first noticed the correlation with Ria's new job. But knowing and proving were different things. I need to get home, he said. No. Deacon's voice carried the same command authority that Colt remembered from their childhood. You're not going back to that house. Not until we figure this out. If I disappear, whoever's doing this will know we're onto them. If you go back, they'll finish the job. Colt slid off the examination table, testing his balance. The 4 fluids had helped, and knowing what was wrong somehow made him feel stronger. I'm not running from this. This isn't about running. This is about staying alive long enough to what? Call the police? Tell them my wife might be poisoning me based on lab results and suspicious timing. Deacon was quiet for a long moment. You think it's Ria? I think someone with access to my food and water has been slowly killing me for 3 weeks. I think that same someone recently started working at a pharmaceutical lab. I think they have access to chlorphenapir. Colt met his brother's eyes. What do you think? I think you need to be very careful what you do next. I will be, but I'm going home tonight. I'm having dinner with my wife and her new friend, and I'm going to start figuring out exactly what's been happening to me. Deacon stood up, moving to block the door. If she's doing this, confronting her could be, I'm not confronting anyone. Not yet. Colt's voice carried the cold certainty that had made him good at his job in the army. If she's trying to kill me, I want to be the one who finishes it. Colt, you didn't see combat. Deacon, you don't understand. When someone tries to kill you, you don't call for help. You eliminate the threat. This isn't Afghanistan. No, it's worse. Because this time, the enemy is sleeping in my bed. The house looked the same as always when Colt pulled into the driveway. 2-story colonial, white siding, black shutters. Ria's car was in the garage, and warm light spilled from the kitchen windows. From the outside, it looked like home, but Colt saw it differently now. Every door was a potential entry point. Every room a place where he could be vulnerable. Every meal a possible weapon. He sat in his truck for a moment, organizing his thoughts. The soldier in him appreciated the tactical situation. Unknown enemy with known capabilities, operating from a position of trust and access. Objective, eliminate the target without detection. Classic poisoning operation. His phone buzzed. A text from Deacon. Are you sure about this? Yes. If something happens, nothing's going to happen. Not tonight. Cole got out of the truck and walked to the front door. Normal routine. Normal behavior. Nothing to indicate that anything had changed. Ria met him in the entryway, rising up on her toes to kiss his cheek. She smelled like the vanilla perfume she'd worn since their wedding, but underneath it was something else. Something chemical and sharp that he'd never noticed before. How are you feeling? She asked. Better. Whatever it was past. Good. Lars should be here in about an hour. I'm making that pasta dish you like. Colt nodded and headed upstairs, fighting to keep his expression neutral. She was making dinner. Of course she was. The perfect wife, taking care of her sick husband, in their bedroom. He pulled out his laptop and open new document. If he was going to do this right, he needed to be systematic, scientific, the same way he'd approached battlefield medicine. Evidence log day 1 confirmed. Chlorpheniper poisoning, consistent low-level exposure over 3+ weeks, suspected source. Food/water contamination, suspected perpetrator. Rhea and known associates. Lars Creighton, pharmaceutical researcher motive. Unknown. He saved the document to an encrypted folder, then pulled up his browser. Time to learn everything he could about his wife's new friend. Lars Creighton's university profile painted him as accomplished but unremarkable. Associate researcher in pharmaceutical chemistry, published papers on metabolic disruptors, currently working on agricultural applications of synthetic compounds. But a deeper search revealed more interesting information. 3 years ago, Lars had been quietly let go from a previous position at a private research firm. No official reason given, but academic gossip forums suggested ethical violations. Something about unauthorized testing protocols. The university had hired him anyway. Academic institutions were often willing to overlook past indiscretions for talented researchers. Colt bookmarked the information and moved on to the next phase. If he was going to catch them, he needed evidence. Real evidence that would hold up in court. The security cameras were easy. Micro units, wireless, nearly invisible when positioned correctly. He'd learned about surveillance technology during his Army service, and civilian equipment had only gotten better. Within an hour, he had cameras positioned in the kitchen, bedroom, and living room, all feeding to a cloud storage account that only he could access. The audio recording would be trickier. His phone could capture conversations, but only if he was present. He needed something more sophisticated. Downstairs, Rhea was humming while she cooked. The sound carried up the stairs, cheerful and domestic. It made his skin crawl as phone buzzed. Another text from Deacon. Anything suspicious yet? Give me time. I could come over. Casual visit. No, can't risk tipping her off. Be careful. Colt pocketed his phone and walked to the bathroom. In the medicine cabinet, behind the aspirin and antacids, he found Rhea's stash of herbal tea. For better sleep, she'd told him when she'd started drinking it a month ago. Right around the time her symptoms had started getting worse, that he photographed each package, noting brands and ingredients. Then he carefully removed one tea bag from each box, replacing them with identical-looking bags filled with harmless chamomile from the kitchen cabinet. If she was using the tea to mask the taste of chlorpheniper, she'd notice the difference. If not, no harm done. Back in the bedroom, he pulled up his banking information. This was the part he dreaded most. Not because he feared what he might find, but because finding it would make everything real. Their accounts looked normal at first glance. But Colt had been managing their finances for 4 years. He knew every pattern, every regular expense. And there, buried in the credit card statements, were the anomalies. 3 charges to chemical supply companies in the past month. Small amounts, under $50 each. The kind of purchases that wouldn't trigger alerts, but would be enough to obtain research quantities of restricted compounds that she'd been careful. Smart, but not careful enough. His life insurance policy had been changed 6 weeks ago. Rhea had asked him to update it as part of their financial planning. He'd signed the papers without reading them carefully, trusting his wife to handle the details. The beneficiary was now Rhea alone. Previously, it had been split between Rhea and a veteran charity. $500,000. Enough to start over somewhere new. Maybe with someone new. Colt? Lars is here. Rhea's voice carried up the stairs, bright and cheerful. Colt closed his laptop and checked his phone. The recording app was active, set to capture everything. Time to meet the man who was helping his wife kill him. Lars Creighton looked exactly like what he was, an academic who'd never done physical labor in his life. Thin build, soft hands, expensive glasses that he probably thought made him look intellectual. He was already seated at their dining room table when Colt came downstairs, a glass of wine in his hand and an easy smile on his face. "You must be Colt," Lars said, rising to shake hands. "Rhea's told me so much about you. All good things, I hope. She mentioned you were feeling under the weather lately. Something going around?" Colt studied the man's face as he answered. "Just tired. Nothing serious." "That's good to hear. At my age, you start worrying about every little ache and pain. They sat down to dinner, Ria's pasta with mushroom sauce, one of Colt's favorites. She served generous portions, encouraging him to eat, asking if he needed anything else. The perfect hostess, the caring wife. Colt ate carefully, tasting each bite before swallowing. The sauce had a slightly bitter aftertaste that he'd attributed to the mushrooms before. Now he wondered if it was something else. "So you're in pharmaceutical research?" Colt asked Lars. "That's right. Metabolic chemistry, mostly. How different compounds affect cellular function." "Sounds complicated." Lars laughed. "It can be, especially when you're dealing with substances that can be beneficial in one dose and harmful in another. The margin between medicine and poison is often razor thin." Ria refilled Colt's wine glass, her hand briefly touching his shoulder. "Lars has been telling me about his work. It's fascinating. What kind of compounds do you work with?" "Oh, all sorts. Synthetic metabolic disruptors, enzyme inhibitors, cellular transport modulators." Lars took a sip of wine. "Most people don't realize how many pharmaceutical applications there are for traditional agricultural chemicals." "Like what?" "Well, take chlorpheniper, for instance. Originally developed as an insecticide, but it has interesting properties as a metabolic disruptor. In very small doses, it can actually help treat certain metabolic disorders." Colt kept his expression neutral, but his hand tightened on his fork. "That's interesting. Of course, the dosage has to be precisely controlled. Too much and you get cellular damage, organ failure, death. Too little and there's no therapeutic benefit. How would someone get access to something like that?" Lars shrugged. "University labs have pretty extensive chemical libraries. For research purposes, of course. Everything's carefully controlled and monitored. Of course." After dinner, Ria insisted on cleaning up while the men talked. Colt helped carry dishes to the kitchen, noting how Ria scraped his leftover pasta into the garbage disposal instead of saving it for lunch tomorrow. She'd always been frugal about leftovers before. "I should probably get going," Lars said when they returned to the living room. "Early day tomorrow." "Thanks for coming over," Ria said. "It was nice to finally have you meet Colt." "Likewise. I hope you feel better soon, Colt. Ria worries about you." After Lars left, Colt went upstairs while Ria finished in the kitchen. He immediately pulled up the cloud storage feed from his hidden cameras. The video quality was excellent. The audio cleared. He fast-forwarded through dinner, watching their interactions from a different angle. Nothing suspicious, just three people having a normal meal. But then he reached the kitchen cleanup sequence. The camera positioned above the sink captured everything. Ria is scraping his plate, washing dishes, wiping down counters. Normal activity, until she opened a cabinet that Colt couldn't see from the dining room. She pulled out a small plastic container, no bigger than a pill bottle. Opened it carefully, shook something in her palm, then returned it to the cabinet. The whole action took less than 10 seconds. Then she walked to the coffee maker and began preparing it for tomorrow morning. Colt's coffee maker. His morning routine for the past 5 years. 2 cups of strong black coffee before he went to the gym. He watched her add coffee grounds to the filter, fill the water reservoir, set the timer. Completely normal, except for the moment when she opened her palm and sprinkled something into the coffee grounds. The camera angle wasn't perfect, but it was enough. She was adding something to his coffee. Something from a container hidden in the cabinet. His phone buzzed. A text message. "Hope you're feeling better tomorrow. Sweet dreams." From Ria, sent from downstairs while he watched her on camera. Colt looked at the message, then at the video feed. She was still in the kitchen, cleaning up. Acting like the loving wife, texting her sick husband that he needed to call Aiden. Aiden Knox had been Colt's best friend since basic training. After the Army, he'd opened an auto repair shop, but his real skill was with electronics and surveillance. If anyone could help Colt build a case, it was Aiden. The phone rang once before Aiden picked up. "What's wrong?" No pleasantries. No small talk. Aiden could read people's voices the way Colt could read medical symptoms. "I need help. Can you come over tomorrow? Ria will be at work." "What kind of help?" "The kind you're good at." Quietly. Aiden was silent for a moment. "Are you in trouble?" "Maybe. I'll explain tomorrow. I'll be there at 9. After hanging up, Colt checked the camera feeds again. Ria had finished in the kitchen and was heading upstairs. He closed his laptop and pretended to be checking emails on his phone. "How are you feeling?" she asked when she entered the bedroom. "A little better." "Good. Maybe you'll be able to get back to your normal routine soon." She said it with perfect sincerity, but Cole heard something else underneath. Hope, maybe. Or anticipation. "Maybe," he said. That night, he lay awake listening to Rhea breathe beside him. Steady, peaceful, untroubled sleep. The sleep of someone with a clear conscience or someone who thought they were winning. The next morning, Colt bypassed his coffee maker entirely. Instead, he made a point of leaving early for the gym, telling Rhea he felt good enough for a light workout. What he actually did was drive to Deacon's hospital. He found his brother in the break room, looking like he'd pulled another all-night shift. Dark circles under his eyes, scrubs wrinkled, that particular exhaustion that came from saving lives for 12 hours straight. "You look terrible," Colt said. "Thanks. You look better." I stopped drinking the coffee. Deacon looked up from his chart. "Find something." "Video evidence of tampering. I need your help with something else." "What?" "Medical records. Similar cases. If Lars and Rhea are doing this to me, I doubt I'm the first." Deacon set down his coffee cup. "That's a hell of a leap." "Is it?" "Smart woman with access to a pharmaceutical researcher. Perfect setup for a Black Widow operation. Test the method on someone disposable, then move on to the real target." "You're not disposable." "I am to her." They walked to Deacon's office, passing through corridors filled with the organized chaos of a busy emergency department. Nurses moved between rooms. Doctors consulted over charts. Families waited for news. The machinery of medicine in motion. "Computer access is limited," Deacon said as he logged into his workstation. "I can search our database, but anything outside this hospital system requires. Just start with here. Last year, unexplained poisoning cases." Deacon's fingers moved across the keyboard. "What am I looking for?" "Chlorpheniper. Similar metabolic symptoms. Middle-aged men with insurance policies." The search returned 3 results. Robert Chun, 42. Admitted 6 months ago with abdominal pain, fatigue, vision problems. Died of organ failure after 2 weeks in ICU. Colt leaned over his brother's shoulder to read the file. Cause of death: undetermined. Toxicology was inconclusive. Inconclusive how? They found trace amounts of several compounds, but nothing at lethal levels. The combination was what killed him, but no one could figure out how he'd been exposed. Family: wife, no kids. She inherited everything. Where's the wife now? Deacon pulled up insurance records. Moved to California 3 months after his death. No forwarding address. What about the other cases? David Williams, 39. Similar symptoms, but he survived. Caught it early and moved out of his house. Never figured out the source. Marriage status: divorced. His wife worked at. Deacon paused, checking the file. University Research Lab. Part-time administrator. Colt felt ice in his veins. Which lab? Doesn't say. But the divorce was finalized right after his hospital stay. Third case: Thomas Rodriguez, 45. Died at home. Found by neighbors after he missed work for 3 days. Toxicology showed elevated levels of metabolic disruptors. Wife: remarried 2 months later. To a research scientist. The pattern was clear. 3 cases, 3 wives with connections to pharmaceutical research, 3 men targeted for their insurance money. The only difference was that David Williams had figured it out in time. "I need to talk to Williams," Colt said. "Patient confidentiality. I'm not asking for his medical records. I'm asking you to call him. Tell him there might be others. See if he'll talk to me." Deacon was quiet for a long moment. "This is really happening, isn't it?" "Yeah, it's really happening. What do you want me to do?" "Call Williams. Set up a meeting. And then I need you to help me with something else." "What?" "I need to fake my own death." Deacon turned to stare at him. "What?" "Not really die, but I need Rhea to think I'm close. If she believes the poison is working faster than expected, she might get careless. Make mistakes. That's insane. Is it? She's been careful so far. Methodical. The only way to catch her is to make her think she's won. What if something goes wrong? What if she decides to speed up the process? Then you'll be monitoring me. Medical supervision. Cole, she's killed at least 2 men, Deacon. She's trying to kill me. And if we don't stop her, she'll find another target and do it again. Deacon looked at the computer screen, at the files of dead and nearly dead men. What do you need me to do? Before Cole could answer, his phone rang. Aiden, I'm at your house, Aiden said without preamble. Your wife's gone, but there's something you need to see. What? Just get here. And bring your brother if you can. Aiden was waiting in Colt's driveway when they arrived, leaning against his pickup truck with his arms crossed. He looked like he always did, faded jeans, work shirt, ball cap pulled low. But Colt could see the tension in his posture. What did you find? Colt asked. Cameras, for one thing. Nice work, by the way. Professional placement. Thanks. What else? Your wife's been busy while you were gone. They went inside, and Aiden led them to the kitchen. He'd spread several items across the counter, the small plastic container from the cabinet, Colt's coffee grounds, water filter cartridges, even spices from the rack above the stove. Found this in a cabinet your cameras couldn't see, Aiden said, pointing to the plastic container. Want to guess what's inside? Colt picked up the container. White powder, maybe half an ounce. Odorless. Chlorpheniper. That's my guess. But here's the interesting part. Aiden pointed to the coffee grounds. She's been dosing more than just your morning coffee. He opened the coffee container and poured some into his palm. Mixed in with the brown grounds were tiny white specks, barely visible unless you knew what to look for. Water filter, Deacon asked. Contaminated. She's been injecting the poison directly into the cartridge. Every glass of water you drink at home has been tainted. Colt felt his anger building, cold and controlled. How long has this been going on? Based on the saturation in your coffee, at least a month. Probably longer. She's been planning this for months. Gets better, Aiden said. I found her laptop. She took it to work. She has two. Work laptop and personal. Personal one was hidden in the bedroom closet. Aiden pulled out a small tablet and opened a folder of screenshots. Email correspondence with your friend Lars. Going back 8 weeks. Colt looked at the screen. Message after message between Rhea and Lars, discussing dosages, timing, symptoms. Clinical discussions about killing him. He's more resistant than expected, one message read. Might need to increase concentration. Lars's response. Be careful. Too much too fast will trigger suspicion. Better to take longer and avoid detection. I'm getting impatient. The insurance money would solve a lot of problems. Patience. We've come this far. Colt scrolled through more messages. References to previous projects. Discussions about finding new targets after he was dead. Planning for a future together that depended on his death. There's more, Aiden said. Financial records. She's been moving money to offshore accounts. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger automatic alerts. How much? About 50,000 so far. Probably practice for the big score. Deacon was reading over Colt's shoulder. This is evidence, right? Enough for an arrest. Maybe, but they could claim it's fiction. Role-playing games, creative writing. We need something more concrete. Colt's phone buzzed. A text from Rhea. How are you feeling today? You left so early. He looked at the message, then at the evidence spread across his kitchen counter. His wife, planning his murder with her lover. Discussing the best way to kill him while pretending to care about his health. Not great. Might come home early. Oh no, I could leave work and take care of you. Don't worry about it. I'll rest at the gym. Are you sure? I don't mind. She wanted him home. Wanted him drinking the poison water, eating contaminated food. Wanted him weak and dying while she played the part of the concerned wife. I'm sure. See you tonight. Colt put his phone away and looked at Aiden. I need you to keep monitoring her communications. Can you do that remotely? Already set up. Keylogger on her laptop. Phone clone for her texts. I'll know everything she does. Good. Deacon, did you reach Williams? He'll meet you tomorrow. Says he's been waiting 2 years for someone to believe him. And the other thing we discussed. Deacon nodded reluctantly. I can fake the medical emergency. Make it look like you're dying. But I still think it's too dangerous. What's dangerous is letting her continue. How many more men is she going to kill? His phone rang. Rhea. Hi, baby. I was just thinking about you. How's your day going? Her voice was warm, concerned, full of love and worry. If he hadn't seen the evidence, he might have believed it. Rough day. Feel like I'm getting worse. Oh no. Maybe you should go see Deacon. I might do that. Good idea. You need to take care of yourself. I love you. Love you too. After he hung up, the three men stood in silence for a moment. She's good, Aiden said finally. She's a sociopath, Deacon corrected. She's about to make a mistake, Colt said, because I'm going to give her exactly what she wants. The meeting with David Williams took place at a coffee shop 20 miles from Dayton. Williams was a thin man with nervous energy, constantly checking over his shoulder as if expecting someone to burst through the door. I knew you'd call eventually, he said after Colt introduced himself. I've been watching the obituaries, waiting to see who would be next. Tell me what happened. Williams pulled out a folder thick with documents. Medical records, police reports, financial statements. Started the same way. Stomach problems, fatigue, vision issues. Took me 3 months to figure out what was happening. How'd you catch her? Accident. I came home sick for work one day, earlier than usual. Found her in the kitchen with a syringe, injecting something into my orange juice. Colt leaned forward. What did you do? Pretended I hadn't seen anything. Went upstairs, called my brother. Had him pick me up an hour later. Told Susan I was going to the hospital. Did you confront her? Hell no. I moved out that night. Filed for divorce the next morning. Let my lawyer handle everything. She didn't fight it. Couldn't. My brother had recorded the whole kitchen scene on his phone through the window. She knew she was caught. Williams pulled out a photograph of a woman in her 30s with dark hair and an attractive smile. That's Susan. But I'd bet money that's not her real name. Colt studied the photo. Different from Rhea, but something about the eyes was similar. Cold. Calculating. She worked at the university lab. Part-time administrator. Same as your wife, I'm guessing. Perfect cover for accessing chemical supplies. What happened to her? Disappeared after the divorce was final. But get this, 6 months later, I got a call from a detective in Chicago. Another dead husband, same pattern. Wife worked at a research lab. Husband died of unexplained metabolic failure. Same woman, different name, different hair color. But same eyes, same smile. Williams tapped the photo. She's a professional, Colt. This is what she does. Any idea how many victims? Detectives said they'd identified at least 5 cases across 3 states. All the same pattern. All unsolved until husbands started dying faster than expected. Colt processed this information. 5 men dead. Maybe more. A systematic operation spanning years. What's your advice? Don't try to be a hero. Get evidence. Get law enforcement involved and get the hell away from her. Williams met his eyes. Because if she figures out that you know, she'll speed up the timeline. And the faster-acting poisons don't leave traces. After Williams left, Colt sat in his truck for a long time, thinking. 5 dead men. A professional killer operating with impunity. And he was supposed to be victim number 6. His phone buzzed. Aiden. Emergency. Call me. Colt dialed immediately. She's moving faster, Aiden said without preamble. Just intercepted an email to Lars. She thinks you're getting suspicious. What did it say? He's asking too many questions. I think he knows something. We need to finish this soon. Response. How soon? This weekend. I'll make it look like a heart attack. Colt felt his blood turn cold. Heart attack. Different poison. Potassium chloride, probably. Injection directly into the bloodstream. Causes cardiac arrest, but doesn't show up in routine toxicology. That's 2 days from now, which means we need to move tonight. Colt started his truck, set up the meeting with the police. All of us. Tonight. Already done. Detective Rena Thibodeau, Domestic Crimes Unit. 8 p.m. at the station. Good. Anything else I need to know? Yeah. Rhea just called in sick to work. She's coming home early to take care of you. How long do I have? She left the lab 10 minutes ago. Maybe 30 minutes if traffic's bad. Colt was already driving toward home. Time to spring the trap. Detective Rena Thibodeau was exactly what Colt had expected from someone who specialized in domestic crime. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense attitude, and the look of someone who'd seen every variation of human cruelty. Walk me through it again, she said, studying the evidence spread across the conference room table. Colt, Deacon, and Aiden had spent 2 hours laying out their case. Video evidence, email correspondence, financial records, toxicology reports, witness testimony from David Williams. everything they'd gathered over the past week. Your wife has been systematically poisoning you for at least 6 weeks, Detective Thibodeau summarized. Working with Lars Creighton, who provides the poison and technical expertise. The goal is to kill you slowly enough to avoid suspicion while collecting your life insurance money. That's right. And you believe she's part of a larger operation? Multiple victims across multiple states. Williams identified at least 5 cases. Same pattern, same methods. Detective Thibodeau picked up one of Aiden's screenshots. The email correspondence is damning, but a good lawyer could argue it's role-playing or fiction. The video shows her adding something to your coffee, but we can't prove what it is without testing. Test it, Colt said. We will. But that takes time, and according to your friend here, she's planning to escalate this weekend. So what do you recommend? Normally, get you somewhere safe, arrest her on suspicion, and build the case from there. But she's smart, and if we move too fast, she'll lawyer up and we might lose her. What's the alternative? Detective Thibodeau was quiet for a moment. We give her what she wants. Let her think she's winning and catch her in the act. That's what I've been saying. It's dangerous. If something goes wrong, I'll be monitored, Deacon said. Medical supervision, controlled environment. We can simulate cardiac distress without actually inducing it. How? Beta blockers to slow his heart rate. Mild sedatives to mimic unconsciousness. From her perspective, it'll look like he's dying of heart failure. And when she tries to finish the job, we'll be recording everything. Video, audio, medical monitoring. Enough evidence to convict her and identify other victims. Detective Thibodeau stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Dayton looked peaceful in the evening light. Normal families going about their normal lives, unaware that a serial killer was operating in their community. I need guarantees, she said finally. Medical teams standing by, full surveillance, backup plan if things go wrong. You'll have them. And if she decides to use a different method, something we haven't planned for. Colt met her eyes. Then you stop her. Whatever it takes. All right, here's how we're going to do this. Friday night, Colt came home from the gym looking exhausted. It wasn't entirely an act. The stress of the past week had taken its toll, and the beta blockers Deacon had given him made everything feel sluggish and distant. Rhea was in the kitchen when he arrived, preparing dinner. She looked up with concern when she saw him. You look awful. Are you okay? Chest feels tight. Having trouble breathing. She moved to him immediately, pressing her hand against his forehead. You're burning up. Maybe you should go to the hospital. I'll be fine. Just need to rest. No, Colt. This doesn't look right. Let me call Deacon. The concern in her voice was perfect. If he hadn't known what he knew, he would have believed she was a loving wife worried about her husband's health. Don't bother him. He's probably busy. He's your brother. He won't mind. Rhea pulled out her phone, but Colt stopped her. Please, just let me lie down for a while. If I don't feel better in a few hours, we'll call him. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but I'm watching you closely. Dinner was quiet. Colt picked at his food, complaining about nausea and lack of appetite. Rhea encouraged him to eat, but didn't push when he refused. She seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. After dinner, they watched television on the couch. Colt lay with his head in Rhea's lap while she stroked his hair, playing the part of the caring wife. But he could feel the tension in her body, see the calculation in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking at T10:30. He excused himself to go to bed. I'll be up in a few minutes, Rhea said. Just want to clean up down here. Colt nodded and headed upstairs. In the bedroom, he palmed the second dose of beta blockers Deacon had given him, washing them down with water from a bottle he'd hidden under the bed. The drugs would slow his heart rate even further, simulate the early stages of cardiac distress. Through the hidden cameras, he could see Rhea moving around the kitchen. She opened cabinets, pulled out items he couldn't identify from the bedroom feed. Her movements were quick, purposeful. She was preparing something. His phone vibrated once. A text from Aiden, who was monitoring the surveillance feed from his truck outside. She's got a syringe. Moving upstairs. Colt closed his eyes and slowed his breathing, letting the beta blockers do their work. His heart rate dropped. His breathing became shallow. To anyone checking, he would appear to be in medical distress. The bedroom door opened quietly. Rhea slipped inside, moving carefully in the darkness. Colt heard her approach the bed, felt her lean over him. "Colt?" she whispered. "Are you awake?" He didn't respond. Through barely opened eyes, he could see her pulling something from her pocket. A syringe, just as Aiden had warned. She checked his pulse at his wrist, then his neck. The beta blockers had done their job. His heart rate was dangerously low, his breathing barely perceptible. "Perfect," she whispered. She pulled out her phone and dialed. "It's happening," she said quietly. "His pulse is barely there. I think he's going into cardiac arrest." Lars's voice was faint but audible through the phone. "Are you sure? I checked twice. He's unconscious. Pulse is weak and irregular." "This is it." "Good. Give him the injection and call 911. Make sure there's enough time between the injection and the call." "How long?" 10 minutes. Enough for the potassium chloride to work, not long enough for them to trace it back to you. Rhea hung up and looked down at Colt. In the darkness, he could see her smile. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered, "but this is the only way." She uncapped the syringe and reached for his arm. This was the moment of maximum danger if she injected him with potassium chloride. The medical team would have only minutes to reverse the effects. But Colt had prepared for this moment. As her hand touched his arm, he opened his eyes. "I'm sorry, too," he said. Rhea jerked back, the syringe falling from her hand. In the darkness, Colt could see her face cycling through emotions: shock, fear, calculation. "Colt, thank God you're awake. I was so worried. I thought you were having a heart attack." He sat up slowly, fighting off the effects of the beta blockers. "Is that what you thought?" "Yes, your pulse was so weak and you weren't responding. I was about to call 911 with a syringe." She looked down at the syringe on the floor, then back at him. I thought you might need an injection. Like an EpiPen. An EpiPen filled with potassium chloride." The mask slipped from her face for just a moment. Cold calculation replaced feigned concern. "I don't know what you're talking about." Colt reached over and turned on the bedside lamp. Light flooded the room, revealing Rhea standing beside the bed in her nightgown, looking like any normal wife checking on her sick husband, except for the syringe at her feet and the fear in her eyes. "You've been poisoning me for 6 weeks, Colt said calmly. "Chlorpheniper in my coffee, my water, probably my food. Slow and steady, meant to look like a natural illness." "That's insane. You're sick, Colt. You're paranoid." "Am I? Then you won't mind if I call the police and have them test that syringe." Rhea's eyes darted toward the door, calculating distances and escape routes. But Colt had positioned himself between her and the exit. "You used the wrong dosage," he continued. "Or maybe you just underestimated the man you married. I don't know what you think is happening here, but I know about Lars. I know about your previous victims. Robert Chun, Thomas Rodriguez. David Williams would have died too if he hadn't caught you in the act." Each name hit her like a physical blow. Her composure cracked a little more with each revelation. "I know about the insurance money, the offshore accounts, the emails discussing the best way to kill me." Colt's voice remained calm, controlled. "I know everything, Rhea." She looked at him for a long moment, and he could see her weighing options. Fight, flight, or try to maintain the deception. She chose fight. "You can't prove anything," she said, her voice changing from loving wife to something harder. "I've been careful. Anything you think you found could be explained away. Could it? Even the video of you adding poison to my coffee this morning." Her eyes widened slightly. "What video?" "The cameras I installed last week. They've been recording everything. Your morning coffee preparation, your phone calls with Lars, your little confession just now about my pulse, and the timing of the injection." The color drained from her face. "You recorded me. I recorded you attempting to murder your husband. There's a difference." Rhea was quiet for a moment, processing this new information. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder. The mask was completely gone now. "How long have you known?" "Suspected for 2 weeks. Knew for certain when Deacon found the chlorpheniper in my blood." "Smart. I thought I was being careful with the dosage." "You were. But you got greedy. Wanted to speed up the timeline." She laughed, a sound without warmth. "You have no idea what greedy looks like. Do you know how much money I could have made if you just died on schedule? $500,000 from the insurance." More from selling the gym and the house. Try 2 million. Your business is worth more than you think. Colt felt a flash of anger, but kept it controlled. How many others, Rhea? How many men have you killed? Enough. She bent down and picked up the syringe. But this can still work out. 1 injection. Call 911 in 10 minutes. Grieving widow, unexpected tragedy. Everyone will blame your weak heart. Except I'm not dying tonight. No. She raised the syringe. I don't see anyone here to stop me. That's when the bedroom door opened. Detective Thibodeau stepped inside, gun drawn, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Behind them came Deacon, Aiden, and a paramedic team. Drop the syringe, Mrs. Mercer. Rhea looked around the room, surrounded. For a moment, Colt thought she might try to use the weapon on herself. But then her shoulders sagged, and she let it fall to the floor. Rhea Mercer, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and possession of a controlled substance with intent to harm. As the officers cuffed her, Rhea looked back at Colt. You were supposed to be easy, she said. Trusting. Predictable. I was all of those things, Colt replied. Until you tried to kill me. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Federal prosecutors had built a case that stretched across 4 states and included 7 confirmed victims. Rhea Mercer, whose real name turned out to be Rachel Morrison, had been operating for almost 6 years. Colt testified on the second day, walking the jury through the evidence he'd gathered. The video surveillance, the toxicology reports, the financial records. The prosecutors played audio recordings of Rhea's phone calls with Lars, including the conversation about timing his death. Lars Creighton had been arrested trying to board a flight to Chicago with fake identification documents. He tried to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for a lighter sentence, providing details about their operation and identifying other potential victims. The defendant and Mr. Creighton specifically targeted men with substantial life insurance policies and limited family connections. The prosecutor explained to the jury. Veterans were preferred targets because they often had insurance through military service and were less likely to have close family members who might ask difficult questions. David Williams testified about his own near-death experience. 2 other men came forward during the trial, men who had survived similar poisoning attempts by women with connections to research laboratories. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings, audio surveillance, email correspondence, financial records, medical testimony, witness statements. The defense tried to argue that Rhea was being manipulated by Lars, that she was a victim rather than a perpetrator. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. 7 charges of murder in the first degree, 3 charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, and unlawful possession of controlled substances. The judge sentenced her to life without the possibility of parole. During the sentencing hearing, she was given the opportunity to make a statement. She stood up slowly, looking directly at Colt for the first time since her arrest. I'm sorry for what I did, she said. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I want you to know that I never meant for things to go this far. The prosecutor objected, but the judge allowed her to continue. I made mistakes, bad choices, but I'm not the monster they're trying to make me out to be. She paused, looking around the courtroom at the families of her victims. I hope someday you can find it in your hearts to forgive me. When she finished, the judge asked if Colt wanted to make a statement. He stood up and looked at the woman who had shared his bed for 4 years while planning his murder. You poisoned me. You don't get forgiveness. You get silence. He walked out of the courtroom without looking back. 6 months after the trial, Colt stood in the expanded gym, watching veterans work through their routines. The space was twice as large now, with a new wing dedicated to wellness and recovery services. Looking good, Deacon said, joining him at the observation window. The wellness clinic had been Deacon's idea, a place where abuse survivors and veterans could get medical care, counseling, and support services, all funded by the settlement money from Rhea's crimes. How many people are we serving now? Colt asked. 43 regular clients in the support groups, maybe 60 using the medical services. Word's getting out. Velma Mercer walked past, leading a group therapy session for domestic abuse survivors. She'd volunteered at the clinic from day one, bringing the kind of no-nonsense compassion that came from decades of nursing experience. Your mother's made quite an impression, Deacon said. She likes having people to take care of again. It had taken time to rebuild their relationship. Velma had been right about Rhea from the beginning, but Colt had been too proud to listen. Now, they talked every day, working together to help other people avoid similar situations. Aiden emerged from the computer lab, wiping his hands on a towel. He'd taken over operations management for the expanded facility, applying his technical skills to everything from security systems to client databases. New client intake tomorrow, he told Colt. Woman from Cincinnati. Similar situation to yours, but she got out before any real damage was done. Good for her. She specifically asked for you. Wants to talk to someone who understands. Colt nodded. That had become part of his routine now, talking to other survivors, sharing his experience, helping them process what had happened to them. It wasn't easy, reliving those memories, but it served a purpose. Oh, and your brother's got news, Aiden said with a grin. Colt looked at Deacon, who was trying to hide a smile. What kind of news? The kind that involves rings and formal announcements. You and Bryn. She said yes last night. Colt clasped his brother's shoulder. About time. We're thinking a small ceremony. Family and close friends. Maybe here at the clinic. I'd like that. Later that evening, Colt sat in his new apartment, a smaller place closer to the gym. The house he'd shared with Rhea had been sold, the money donated to victims' advocacy groups that a reporter called, wanting to do a follow-up story about the case. The trial had generated significant media attention, and there was ongoing interest in how the victims were rebuilding their lives. What would you say to her if you saw her again? The reporter asked. Colt thought about the question. He'd been asked variations of it dozens of times over the past months. People seemed to expect anger, hatred, a desire for revenge, but the truth was simpler. Nothing, he said. She doesn't exist anymore. After hanging up, he pulled out his laptop and opened the document he'd been working on. A guide for identifying and surviving domestic poisoning attempts. Practical information that could save lives. The title page was simple. Trace Elements, a survivor's guide to detection and recovery. He worked late into the night, documenting everything he'd learned. The warning signs, the medical symptoms, the investigative techniques, the legal procedures. Information that might help the next person who found themselves in a similar situation, because there would be a next person. There always was, but now they'd have a better chance of surviving it. Outside his window, Dayton slept peacefully. Somewhere in the city, other people were going about their lives, trusting the people they loved, building futures together. Most of them would never face what Colt had faced. Most marriages were exactly what they appear to be, partnerships built on love and mutual respect. But for those who weren't so lucky, help was available now. A place to go, people who understood, resources to help them rebuild. It wasn't the life Colt had planned, but it was a good life. A purposeful life, and it was his.